Tonight I'm going to give you some coaching advice on the different portions of the RCM test. So I'm going to do 4 videos, one that is about each of the sections of the test. So the first section of the test I'm going to talk to you about is the technical requirements for the piano, okay? This is basically the scales and the chords. I do not happen to have the level 1 book tonight. I think it must be with one of my students. So we're going to look at the level 2 book. But for level 1, they have to know C major, F major, and G major, and then their corresponding minors. What are the things that the judge is going to be looking for? So first of all, most importantly, they're going to be looking for correct notes, okay? So usually the first thing that I do with the kids is I'll have them write down for me, like in their notebook, we'll write out the notes of the scale. So I'll put like G and then a line, E, a line, G, and say fill in the missing blanks for me. So the first step is to teach them the notes. So if we're teaching the G scale, that's going to be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, right? Okay, so we do not want to get any notes wrong on the scales. They need to know what they are. Usually the hardest thing for my students on the scales is to do the fingerings correctly. Now the good news is that except for the F major scale, all of the scales on the level 1 test have the same fingering, right? So when you play the G scale, for example, you go 1, 2, 3, and then you take your thumb under to the 4th note, which is C, and then you reposition your hand, okay? So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But because we have to go 2 octaves, we have to go under again. Okay, now I have all of these scales are elsewhere on this YouTube channel. So if you're not quite sure what the fingering should be for any of the scales on this test, I guarantee you that there is a video of each of those scales somewhere on this YouTube channel, and it's pretty easy for you to find. So let's make sure they have all the notes correct, and we want to make sure that they're doing all the fingerings correctly. The second thing is that we want to make sure that we're adhering to the tempo, okay? So in the guidebook, it says quarter note equals 69 beats per minute. So they're going to want to play them at 8th notes though. If what they're playing sounds too much like quarter notes, that will knock their scale down, okay? Or their score. So what are the things that would knock their score down? Wrong notes would knock their score down the most. Wrong fingerings are going to knock their scores down. And being too slow, okay? So like if I'm playing G scale 2 octaves, it needs to be like this fast. And then I would do my left hand. Right? Okay, so that's what you're aiming for. If their scales come out like quarter notes, then that's going to be not as good, okay? All right, then they also have to do chromatic scale, right? Make sure that when they do the chromatic scale, that they're using the correct fingering. I always teach my kids what I call the chromatic poem. And the chromatic poem goes, black is 3, white is 1, except when there is none. So what that means is that every single time that I'm playing a chromatic scale, let me get my hand up here on the piano. Where's this? This is way over here. I want to play 1 on C, and then I'm going to go 3 on the black key, 1 on the white key, 3 on the black key, 1 on E, 2 on F. See, that's where the 2 comes in. So that's what that last part of the poem means. Black is 3, white is 1, except when there is none. If they're playing the chromatic scale and they are not doing the chromatic fingering, they will get knocked down on their points. Okay? All right, let's go on to the chord, the broken and blocked chord version or portion of the test. Okay, so all of the broken and blocked chords they have to do, these are basically inversions, okay? What in the US we call them inversions. There's a couple things that they want to pay attention to. They must do the fingerings correctly, okay? So when you do your right hand, the root position, let's say I'm doing C, It needs to be 1, 3, 5. And then what do? I put the C on top, right? So that gives me E, G, C. Well, because that third is on the bottom of that chord, I want to do 1, 2, 5, right? And then when I put the E on top, which gives me G, C, and E, I want to make sure that I'm putting 1, 3, 5. So as they're working on these in the book, try to make sure that they're also doing the fingerings correctly. My experience with these is they're the hardest on level 1 and 2. And then by the time they get to level 3, they kind of just get it. Like they intuitively know what they're supposed to play. And some kids, that happens for them even way back on 1, okay? So I know that this can seem daunting to teach this portion, but I would just really focus on getting them to understand how is this exercise played, okay? So when you do the blocked chords, you want to make sure that you do the rhythm like it's written in the book. So you would go rest, first inversion rest, second inversion rest, root position. Then you go back down with a rest in between each one, okay? And you also don't want them to play the top one twice. But on the broken chord, they do play the top one twice. I need to get these on my YouTube channel, and I promise that I will work on doing that because I have all of the ABRSM scales on there, which are really also commonly used on the RCM exams, but the broken and blocked chords, they don't have those on the ABRSM test. Okay, so that is how I would go about teaching these, and I would make sure that you're assigning a couple scales every week, and over the course of like the first couple months, 2 or 3 months that you're practicing for the exam, they should have all the scales down. I try to get the scales down as soon as I can.